Welcome, folks, to our first segment of the E and J podcast.
Hello, everybody. Since this is our first episode ever, we'll introduce ourselves. My name is Ashna, which stands for the E in our podcast name.
Hello, and my name is Julia, the J in the podcast name.
It has been a while, Julia, so how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and yes, it has been a while. How are you?
I'm doing epically. What's the weather like on your side? Mine's actually pretty cloudy. It's like about to rain, actually.
Oh, well, it's the exact opposite for me. It's super sunny out. Well, I'm excited for our first episode of our podcast today.
Same. Glad that we have the privilege to do this episode.
Alright. So our first episode for our podcast, we're going to be talking about one of the most requested topics, which is the Dream SMP. Ashna, do you know the Dream SMP?
Yes, I do. The votes are what keeps me sane during this pandemic, to be honest.
Same. I'm pretty sure the people listening right now at least know what the Dream SMP is about, as it blew up last year.
Yes, I agree. I hope our listeners do at least know what it is. As today's podcast, we are going to give our thoughts on the SMP law and be explaining the plot a little and giving an introduction about the Dream SMP. So do stay tuned and continue to listen to our podcast. Hey Julia, what even is the Dream SMP?
Well, it is a survival multiplayer server created in May 2020 of last year, founded by Dream, hence the name. It started out with only 2 players, which are Dream and George Not Found. It is just a normal survival server where players were just playing regular Minecraft. As months progressed, more players were added in, like It's Alyssa, Callahan, Pong, Sapnap, and Bad Boy Halo. Now it is known to be an invite-only server featuring top Minecraft content creators. It was a real treat if you were invited. The Dream SMP then became one of the most popular Minecraft series of all time and brought back Minecraft and Twitch streamers once again.
Oh, I see. Well, I agree with you that it brought limelight to Minecraft and Twitch streamers as it blew up. Anyways, why did Dream start this SMP?
Dream's reason was that since he was always speedrunning Minecraft, he wanted to take things slow this time around.
Good for him, as sometimes taking things slow is definitely a way to go.
I definitely agree with you, Ashna.
So Julia, were more players added? And after a while, what happened to the Dream SMP?
Yes, more players joined such as Tommy Innit, Wilbursoot, Jack Manifold, Quackity HQ, Technoblade, Carl Jacobs, It's Fundy, and many more. The SMP started out as a regular multiplayer server and no storyline was intact yet, that is. Later on, the SMP would have War of Independence, a government, a presidential election, and many other wars which would impact the lore and mold the story into what it is known as now. Because of this, it rose in popularity. Who knew that this simple getaway SMP would develop and have a legit storyline?
It's really cool. The fact that it started out as just a regular server and developed into something similar to our real world is amazing. Julia, as you mentioned, how did the SMP impact the people watching the VODs and streams?
Well, the Dream SMP brought many people together and formed a new community of people. Like for example, many were united as they would analyze the lore or create predictions about it. I would say that the SMP live streams on Twitch also really helped lots of people to cope during the pandemic.
It is incredible that something as simple as a Minecraft server could impact the people watching and blow up in such a short period of time, despite it being just a roleplay. I agree that it was able to form a new group where many could make new friends and find people with similar interests to enjoy the content in general. Well, Julia, when did the canon lore of the Dream SMP begin?
Well, Ashna, it began when Tommy Innit joined the server on July 4th, 2020. At first, the SMP was not considered to be a story or even have a story. But after a while, some of the later content creators in the SMP began to write an actual plot, and then it was built up from there. We'll be diving more into the lore later in the podcast.
Oh, I understand. Julia, even when the SMP had no beginning of a lore, I wanted to know what was one of the most well-known buildings in the SMP and your opinion on it.
Good question, Ashna. In my opinion, I would say the community house. Although its design is not my cup of tea, it is one of the oldest and memorable buildings of the SMP and makes the Dream SMP what it is today. The building was the base of the server and the first proper build ever created. It was the place where Beckerson the fish was first caught, and the first area to have a proper farm too. Ah, the good old simple times at the SMP. What do you think of the community house, Ashna?
To be frank with you, Julia, the house is not nice looking at all. It looks way too blunt for my taste. Like the remodeling done by Dream really made it look much better. But I agree with that the community building is one of the most memorable and important buildings in the server.
I finally found someone that agrees with me. I've always thought about that. Anyways, continuing on, Ashna, could you explain and tell us about the Dream SMP lore?
Well, I'll be explaining it in the second part of our podcast later. So stay tuned and listen to some jazzy music while you wait. We'll be back after this short break. See you guys.
See you all later. Goodbye. Hello, guys, and welcome back to the podcast. We shall now continue on to our discussion about the lore of the Dream SMP. Example being the parts where we will talk about the presidential debate, etc.
Yeah, this will be interesting to talk about. Are you ready, Julia?
Yes, ready. So, Ashna, when did the story start? And how were the scripts written for the storyline? It has been quite a while since I've watched the first few streams of the Dream SMP.
Well, the story properly started after the creation of L'Manberg. Even till today, the SMP's lore consists of scripted improvisation, where the major plot points are written out, including the dialogue, and the rest of the story is improvised.
Ashna, since I assume many know about what happened in the time period of the L'Manberg independence saga, as it was the most well-known part of the lore, many may forget about the time when Tommy joined, as it was a long time ago. Can you briefly summarize what happened? As you say, that the story only started progressing when he joined, and that's when it began to rise in popularity.
Well, to help those of you who might not entirely remember that period of time, it all began with Pong and Sapnap griefing each other's builds. The two wanted to duel for who gets more space on the server, so Sapnap gathered Tommy in it as one of his allies. This was one of the first few wars in the SMP. Sapnap, Tommy, and Tubbo were winning and killed many others on the SMP. Dream eventually locked on and tried to stop them, but failed and was killed numerous times as he had no gear. In order to not let Tommy misbehave, Dream took both of Tommy's discs, known as Cat and Mellow High. Tommy surrendered as both discs were his prized possession. This was the beginning of a new chapter of the lore known as the Disc Saga.
Oh, I see. It has been a long time since I've heard of Tommy's era in the lore. I also wanted to ask, how did Tommy's disc saga progress during the L'Manberg War?
During the War of L'Manberg, the story revolving around Tommy started when Dream stole Tommy's disc again. Tommy, alongside Tubbo and his fellow comrades of L'Manberg, fought against Dream, but unfortunately they lost. Somehow later, Tommy got his disc, but then he gave them away to Dream in exchange for independence for L'Manberg.
Oh yeah, I found Tommy's character really amazing as he sacrificed his precious discs for the sake of L'Manberg. It was definitely a character development for him wanting to protect his precious disc to him wanting to gain independence for a country he was a part of. Tommy has found something else to cherish, which is L'Manberg. Ashna, what happened when Wilbur joined?
Wilbur established a drug ban with Tommy, but that plan soon failed. He then decided to create a nation for the Europeans on the server. When told about this plan, Dream was alright with it. But that soon went down the drain when Wilbur started to draft a formal declaration of independence. Another war started. Now at this point in time, Wilbur, Tommy, Tubbo, Fundy, and Everett were the official citizens of L'Manberg. Lots of fighting happened, but there was a plot twist. There was a traitor among the L'Manbergians, and it was Everett. Everett mentioned that he betrayed L'Manberg to become king of the Dream Team SMP server. As the war progressed, L'Manberg was losing hope. Wilbur and Tommy met with Dream for negotiations, and Tommy and Dream had a duel. That duel ended with Dream killing Tommy. After Tommy respawned, he entered into a negotiation with Dream to give L'Manberg independence in exchange for Tommy's disc. Dream agreed, and this was the end of the Dream Team SMP versus L'Manberg war. After this, Wilbur became president while Tommy was the vice president. The new nation also welcomed two new members, which were Jack Manifold and Nihir Chu, also known as Nikki.
Wow, that's really cool, Ashna. As I recall, there was a series of events happening after the War of Independence of L'Manberg. Series of events being a government establishing and an influential presidential election happening between a few parties. Could you explain what happened thereafter?
Things happened such as the railway incident and the Pad War, but we won't touch on that. We'll move on to a more important part, which is the L'Manberg election, or also known as SWAG 2020 versus POC 2020 election. At that point of time, two members joined the Dream SMP. They were Quackity and Jay Schlatt, both popular streamers even before joining the server. At first, there were three parties: POC 2020, SWAG 2020, Coconut 2020. POC 2020 was led by Wilbur Soot and Tommy in it. SWAG 2020 was led by Quackity and George Not Found. Coconut 2020 was led by Fundy and Nikki. Fundy's party gave a speech which swayed the opinions of Tommy and Wilbur's chats. When asked for endorsements, both logged off in panic. Quackity's party had an endorsement from KSI, but this was never confirmed. Wilbur's party was endorsed by Vicstar123 and Jay Schlatt. That endorsement from Jay Schlatt was soon denounced, with him endorsing Coconut 2020 instead, then later forming his own party. Dream immediately endorsed Schlatt 2020. At the end of the election, SWAG 2020 was endorsed by Call Me Carson.
Oh, I see. It's incredible how they were able to fit an election into the history of the SMP. Ashna, who did you want to win the election? To be honest, I kind of wanted Coconut 2020 because they would deliver desserts to every doorstep. I mean, who doesn't love desserts? I can't resist.
That's true though, but I felt that POC 2020 should have won the election. Well, anyways, what happened after that?
Alright, I'll explain. During the election, Quackity was alone as George Not Found, his supposed right-hand man, was sleeping. So Quackity made a pledge where the amount of votes he got, he would combine it with Jay Schlatt's. So Quackity would become the vice president of Jay Schlatt if they won the election. When the results of the ballot was revealed, Quackity and Jay Schlatt's party won by a clutch of 1% higher than POC 2020. It was decided that Jay Schlatt was the new president of L'Manberg, while Quackity was the vice. Jay Schlatt changed the signature L'Manberg name to Manberg, and even their original flag. In Jay Schlatt's first presidential speech, he exiled both Tommy and Wilbur from their own country. That was when Poctopia was formed.
Oh, I see. Listeners, we'll be continuing on Poctopia versus the Manberg War after this short break. See you all in a few seconds. Alright, welcome back. We'll continue to talk about the events that occurred in what was called Manberg. Alright, so Julia, what happened after both Tommy and Wilbur were exiled?
When Tommy and Wilbur were exiled, they had to flee to the further wilderness of the Dream SMP. They were helpless. At this time, Wilbur's character was starting to change. From the leader of a nation to a terrorized man left with nothing but the memories of his fallen Lemberg. Wilbur became a little bit insane as he was affected mentally, since his country Lemberg was taken over. His freedom was once again stolen and he had to start all over again. Tommy's character didn't change much during this time though, but at all hopes lost, Technoblade gave a helping hand. Techno helped them as he wanted to take down the government as he was an anarchist. The three prepared for their first attempt to gain Lemberg again and to stop Jschlat on the day of the festival.
I get it now.
Hey Ashna, what happened at the festival for their first attempt?
The Manberg Festival, or known as the Red Festival, was a celebration of democracy and Manberg, hosted mainly by Schlatt, Quackity, and Tubbo. Everyone on the server was invited except for Tommy and Wilbur. It was then revealed that the festival was no celebration. It was a trap and a celebration of executing a traitor. It was all fun and games until Tubbo's speech. Schlatt then trapped Tubbo and ordered Technoblade to kill Tubbo. Techno killed him together with Schlatt and Quackity. Before the festival, Dream secretly met up with Wilbur to supply him things to create 11 stacks of TNT. Wilbur believed that if he couldn't have Lemberg, then no one could. The destruction of Lemberg, but now newly known as Manberg, now was in one single push of a stone button. Wilbur wanted Tubbo to decide Lemberg's fate through his speech. If he said the last sentence of his speech, Wilbur would blow up Lemberg. If Tubbo didn't, Wilbur won't press the button. Unfortunately, Schlatt told Tubbo to read the last sentence. Tubbo did, so Wilbur went to find the location of the button, but he couldn't find it. While Wilbur was looking for the button, Jay Schlatt knew that Tommy and Wilbur were at the festival, and that it was a trap all this time. Tubbo was executed by Technoblade in front of everyone with the instruction of Jay Schlatt, and a mass murder spree had begun. Wilbur and Tommy's first intervention to Manberg had failed. Mind you, the way Schlatt spoke and the vibe around it reminds me when the teacher scolds someone and everyone is just sitting there quietly, like, oh no, he's dead, rest in peace to that person.
Oh, I see. Ashna, I really agree with what you say. And yeah, unfortunately, their first attempt did not go as planned. I can see Wilbur's character took a shift during this time. I mean, he did lose everything he stood for and had to be exiled from the only place he called home, the place where freedom was for himself and his people of Lemberg. Although this era was really sad and unfortunate, there is some character development in there, which was what every good story has.
Indeed, that was character development. Julia, what happened after their first attempt?
Well, Ashna, Poctopia vs. Manberg was the Second Great War and by far one of the most intense wars to exist in the history of the Dream SMP. After the events of the Red Festival, Nikki and Tubbo officially joined Poctopia's side. Quackity also quietly joined Poctopia as he was being mistreated by Schlatt. Fundy joined too. Schlatt now had no one on his side. Even Arid decided to help Poctopia, but in exchange, he had to step down from his position, which he did, to fix his betrayal during the Lemberg independence saga. The people of Manberg were secretly helping by giving resources and telling Poctopia information about Jay Schlatt. This was the start of the Manberg Rebellion.
Oh, I see. It was really cool seeing the rebellion as everyone was consolidated for the first time in a while.
Yes, agreed. Ashna, what happens during the Manberg Rebellion?
Well, after a few months of preparation, they were finally able to face off Jay Schlatt. Dream warned them that there was a traitor among Poctopia, but everyone was united, so the traitor was not put in significance. When the rebels of Manberg and Poctopia stormed into Manberg, Jay Schlatt was helpless and surrendered. Dream was on Jay Schlatt's side, but then he surrendered and brought the Poctopians to the drug van, where Schlatt was at. Schlatt was drunk and started to breathe weirdly. It was clear that Schlatt was dying. He didn't get to say anything else except for Flatty Patty.
Oh yeah, I remember now. I'll dive in deeper after Jay Schlatt's death. So after Jay Schlatt's death, the people of the restored Lemberg were gathered at the podium to decide who the new president was. At first, Tommy was given the position of authority, but he passed it to Wilbur, and Wilbur passed it to Tubbo. Tubbo was now the new president of Lemberg. While Tubbo was giving his speech as the new president, Wilbur fled quietly to where the button was, this time making sure he marked it where it was. He was contemplating with himself whether to blow it all up or not. What Dream said was true. There was a traitor. It was the changed Wilbur. Filza came and tried to stop Wilbur from the pressing button, but Wilbur pressed it anyway, while saying one of the most iconic quotes, "It was never meant to be." Wilbur then asked Filza to kill him, and so he did. Now Wilbur was known as Ghostbur. Everyone was shocked at the amount of destruction caused. The civilization of Lemberg was destroyed.
Wilbur's death was unexpected. I did not know that Filza would actually kill him.
I agree with you, Ashna. His death was definitely unforeseen. So Ashna, why did Technoblade betray them in the end? I missed the stream, unfortunately.
Due to Technoblade being an anarchist, he wanted to destroy the government. Seeing Tubbo being elected as a president, he says that history is repeating itself all over again. He then spawned 8 withers and talked about how if Tommy wanted to be a hero, he should die like one. Another mass massacre has occurred again. Watch the VOD, it's very enlightening.
Oh wow, what a way to end this whole saga. It's definitely a ride of a roller coaster. But a quintessential way to do so.
Well, I agree again with you, Julia.
Alright listeners, we'll be taking a short break. We hope that you enjoy the music in the meantime. See you all in a few seconds. I hope you enjoyed the music just now. This is the final part of our podcast. In this section, we'll be speaking about our own opinions on the parts we talked about just now. So Ashna, what is your opinion on the amount of clout that the Dream SMP received? Do you think that is deservable?
I definitely think that the clout that they received was well deserved. The plot is exciting, and the people who were part of the story really did a great job on it. That clout also made all those streamers and YouTubers on the server more popular and well known. They also formed a new generation of Minecrafters, which I think the children of today can look up to as to how we all looked up to the old generation Minecrafters like Dan TDM, Stampy, popular MMOs, and etc. What about you, Julia?
For me, I genuinely think that the clout was equitable. This is because the lore was entertaining and not your typical cliches. It also introduced many new uprising content creators and helped make them grow their platform in the process. Not only that, but the whole storyline was entertaining and was full of unexpected events. The Dream SMP series was also introduced by one of the most popular Minecraft YouTubers known as Dream, so it's not a surprise that it blew up and had a huge audience. Hey Ashna, who are your favorite characters in the Dream SMP?
Well, mine has to be Mexican Dream and Technoblade. Well, Mexican Dream is just way too funny, and Technoblade's character is just really likable, and he isn't even pretending to be his character. His character is just like that. How about you, Julia?
Well, for me personally, I really like Wilbur, Tommy, and Tubbo. Tommy and Tubbo because I enjoy their friendship and dynamic together. It makes you happy when you see them together during the lore streams or outside YouTube videos, you know?
Oh, I see. Well, so Julia, do you think that adding wars and presidential elections was a good idea?
Well, I think that adding those things did make the lore more exciting, as it's not every day you get to see and experience things like that. Though it does bring up the old times of people fighting for authority, and some may consider it controversial. I really don't think so. In the end, it's just a roleplay. Adding it makes it more dramatic, as it is the conflict part inside the SMP lore. What about you, Ashna?
I see. I do agree with you. What type of story would be interesting if there wasn't any conflict in it? Well, I really want to know what are your hopes for the future of the Dream SMP?
The Dream SMP now has a separate segment known as the Tales of the SMP, which is separate canon stories following the journey of Carl Jacobs and his time-traveling experience. I find this interesting and a good additive to the history of the lore as it makes Carl a more significant character. I just hope that they would continue it and somehow still have parallels to the original Dream SMP lore. As for the main lore itself, it has moved to the Egg era, which I don't really find interesting to be honest. I hope that they could make it more fascinating, as the Egg is only able to convert people to protect it, which I find plain, as only a few members of the SMP were a part of it. I do think that Wilbur was the best writer for the lore, as he was the writer for the Lemberg and Palktopia era. I hope he would come back and write for the lore again, as he stopped doing so after his character became Ghostbur. Despite that though, I wouldn't change a single thing for the earlier parts of the SMP lore before the Egg, as I think it is iconic enough already.
For me, I feel that having guests to come join the Dream SMP will make it really interesting. I really liked the episodes with KSI and Ninja on the server. I was laughing way too much. I also would enjoy it if the members will be part of the lore more. Other than that, there's really not much to say other than the Dream SMP is a really good server with a history. Well, on that note, this is the end of episode 1 of the ENJ podcast.
Thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back on our second episode, season 1 of the E&J podcast. Come and catch us every Friday, 2 p.m. East Central Time. See y'all soon!
Goodbye!